Hello everyone, I'm here with Tech Motorsports, and here is the 97, the E36 M3 that is going to be a weekend slash track warrior. So we're not going to go super crazy with this car, with this build, but we are going to go through a lot of it. But this video is just going to be technically maintaining to the dual pump fuel system for this car. As anybody knows that drives an E36, you start making hard right turns and you get fuel starvation. So the kit that we're going to be working on, or we're going to be installing, which is the kit from BMW World, that one right there fixes that issue, and yeah, pretty much eliminates the fuel starvation. So this car, like I said, it was going to get a lot of stuff. The rear subframe is completely out, and I decided just to do a separate video on the fuel pump system. So yeah, so I already have the tank out and it's sitting here right close to me, and let's dive straight into the fuel pump system. Okay, so with the fuel tank and the dual pump system, what I'm going to end up doing now is I'm going to vacuum all this dirt and everything off of this, off the top of the fuel tank. Okay, so we have it pretty much all together. It's nice and open, so it should be very easy to kind of go through and do this. Anybody that does this normally does it with the tank inside the car. So this may help out down the road, or it may not, but at least you're able to get a big picture and you see exactly what's in the way. So this is the sending unit for the fuel level on the driver's side, and this is the actual fuel pump for the engine. So this is the return line coming from the engine. So this is the unused fuel, and that one, again, that's what feeds the engine for the fuel. So we're quick and easy. The rings, they're plastic, got to be careful. What I end up using is a pry bar, one that's not completely sharp, and I end up tapping on the little ears here, but I don't always keep it on the one ear. I rotate it all the way around, so that way I don't break one of these off. So that was kind of easy to do and get both of these off. And then if you have one that's never been changed before, because some of them might already have the fuel pump replaced, and usually they don't have these clamps on there. They have the regular hose clamps. So this one had the regular hose clamps. So I had to use a little flathead screwdriver and kind of just get it in between right here, and just go back and forth, and they pop open. And yeah, so that was kind of easy. And the next thing I end up doing, because some of these times these hoses are on there, what I end up doing is I get some pliers, and all I do is just right on top where the clamp goes, or where the clamp was, and I kind of tighten it, and all I do is rotate it back and forth just to break it loose from the plastic. And then at that point you could either use the pliers or screwdriver. Be very careful with the screwdriver, and just pry it up like that. And these are already been off, so they're a little bit easier. And you could just get them off, or just pull them off at that point. Now remember, most of you will anybody that's doing them most likely will have the fuel tank installed. So yeah, so that gets us to that. The hoses are now completely removed. Put this sucker right back there. And yeah, so just to do a quick little rundown, the way the system works, the OES system, is this pump here, or this the driver's side, is the unused return fuel coming from the engine. So what that does, it dumps it into this port, dumps it into a tube that's connected, that goes all the way across on this fuel pump here. So this is what feeds the engine. So hard right turns, all the fuel goes all the way to this side, and what happens is with it going around the corner so quick and using a lot of grip, all the G-forces bring all the fuel this way, and then there's not enough return fuel coming back to feed this and to keep the main fuel pump completely submerged under gasoline. So then what happens is you start getting fuel starvation. So the BMW World kit takes care of that. There are so many different ways you could go about this, but the BMW World Kit has everything, and that's what we're installing. So yeah, so I'm going to take this out and show you what it looks like on the inside so you have a better understanding. Okay, so this is the box that the fuel pump sits in, the plastic container. And as you can see, there is that tube that I'm talking about that goes all the way over to the driver's side. So all the water gets, all the fuel gets pushed back in here, and the fuel pump is submerged into that, into the fluid there. So that's the whole goal, and that for how the system is done OEM. So what we're going to end up doing is removing that hose, and we'll be taking this whole item out. So yeah, let's get started with that. So also just wanted to make notation, which is very easy, the rotation or where this fuel pump, which is the main fuel pump, where it's located, and clock that, so that way it's easy to install the new one. This one right here is going to be different because we have to clock the new one in a different position. So now it will be a little bit tough trying to get the sending unit arm out of the way with that tube attached to it. Okay, now you could just go in and cut the tube. I'm taking it out all in one whole entire piece. So now what I'm going to do is jump to this side and pull it out of the little box that it's in. And there she is. Okay, so here's a little bit more of a breakdown now that we have everything apart. So here's the return port coming from the engine itself. As you can see, there's that little piece, little tube there, and this pushes all that return fluid back into that box, which technically ends up being like right here, and all that fluid, all the fuel goes into that section. And that's where the problem lies, is when you start taking hard turns, is this is not sufficient enough to supply enough fuel for that pump, and that's why you get fuel starvation. So let's take a look at the new system. So I'm going to go ahead and install the pumps real quick, and then we'll touch base with that. All right, so now we're going to go do the installation. So what I'm going to end up doing is I grab some WD-40, and I'm going to lube the new seals, so that way it assists me when I go and try to clock and rotate the fuel pumps in place. So I put these in first. Okay, now for the second pump. Now the rotation of this one is going to be very important, and the main thing is you want this, the level right here, you want it facing this way towards this saddle. So you want it going towards the back. If you rotate it in a different way, the arm is going to rub on somewhere inside, and it's not going to give you your full range of fuel. Now, I forget which does which, but one side does from empty to half, and then the other side does from half to full. So you'll have one or the other to, well, it will work, it won't work. So yeah, so I'm gonna rotate it this way. So all right, so she's nice and tight. Got to be very careful. I know sometimes they go on incorrectly. But I mean, you won't know 100% sure if it's if you have any leaks until it's installed with fuel in it, unfortunately. But the best thing is just making sure that you get a nice, good seat all the way around the fuel pump here, and just take your time trying to get it into place because it's plastic. It will thread incorrectly, and it's very easy to do. Just got to be, you know, got to keep an eye on that. So yeah, so now that these are in place, now it's just a matter of laying some of the plumbing down, which is going to be very simple. So I'll get going with that. All right, so this is the 8mm hose that comes in the kit. And what's this going to do? So, I almost forgetting. So now with the system, when I told you on how the OEM system works, this is how the new system works. So now we have two pumps. Okay, we have the main pump and then we have the secondary pump. So it's still going to work the same way as the OEM. This pump is going to feed the engine, while this pump is now going to feed that the box where, I forget exactly what it's called, but the container of where the fuel pump sits in. So now the hose that's going to connect from here, which is this one, is going to dump into this hole right here, which feeds straight down into that box. So now this one will feed this pump. Now you won't have fuel starvation on hard right turns. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. All right, so now the next step is the 12mm hose. So the 12mm hose is going to go into here, which is, this is now on the main pump, is going to be, it's the return port for this pump. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to fit it. And then what I'm trying to end up doing is just trying to keep things a little bit clean. So, so you got to keep in mind, so I got that much that went into there for a nice good fit. And then you also have to you have to keep in mind on the reducers. So this is going to be the reducer here. So what I'm going to try to do is try to have it to where it almost butts up, just as a little bit of room. I don't want to have too much hose coming up. So I am going to give myself a little room. So I'm going to cut this piece off just enough to where I could put this on there, and then I'll be able to trim the 8mm hose and then attach it to here. Okay, so I got the lines already installed. So here is my 12mm with the reducer, and then my 8mm hose going all the way across, and I was able to use the existing clips for this, so that looks clean. I got the feed for the engine already connected as well, and that goes there. Now what I end up doing is I left myself a little slack over here on this end, and the reason being is sometimes when you remove these the ends get a little bit kind of chewed up a little bit by trying to pry them up. So I gave myself a little bit there just in case it does happen. We can cut some of it off, and we should be good without having to replace the whole line. So that's in place. Also got this section here, the 12mm, and I got that one out. Now what I'm going to do differently is, and I'm going to see if it works, because it'll work here outside, but I just don't know how it will be on the inside. So this hose, which is the return line, comes from underneath the ventilation from the engine from the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one out, and I'm going to go on the outside of it. And the reason being, because if I have it with this being long, I'm afraid that this hose, let me bring the camera in just a tad bit closer. So technically this is where this hose goes. As you can see, it's right there where those plastic lines are. So what I end up doing is I just pull it out and I bring it on the outside. And the reason why I want to bring it on the outside, now I can shorten it and it won't rub anymore, because if I put this on there, I'm afraid that the tension with the connection being way up here, not down here, that it could rub more on the plastic pipes, and I didn't want that. So that's how I'm going to end up doing it. I'm hoping there's enough room underneath the chassis. If not, then I will have to redo it. But right now, I'm only going to cut a small amount off. So if it doesn't work, then I'll just have to cut another section off. So yeah, that's how I'm going to end up doing it. Okay, so at this point, the plumbing is technically done. All is left is just going to be running the electrical connector, which here is the plug that comes with the kit. And I'm just going to be splicing into the existing power of the fuel pump. And so I'm going to end up soldering and heat shrinking this into place. And yeah, they just plug right into there. So yeah, so you're still going to end up using the original one that's in there. we're just going to end up adding power to the pump, and yeah, that should be it. You don't have to worry about changing any other additional fuses or anything of that sort. So as of right now, I've gotten everything tight, and I'm hoping that none of these clamps have to be shifted or anything, but if it is, I won't know until the tank is back in. So yeah, so as of right now, this side is done. I'm going to jump into the electrical side and get this taken care of, and yeah, that's pretty much about it. I do want to add, it is this right here, the ventilation tubes to take this thing out. It is a little bit of pain of a butt getting them all out, and it is a little bit of a pain getting it back in. So so yeah, so it is what it is. But I had to take the tank out to weld underneath the chassis. So yeah, so at least this way now the tank looks all nice and clean, and the install is nice and clean as well. And yeah, so I'm gonna get ready to get this puppy up there. I will check the plug and see, and just worry about running the wires from underneath first through, and then doing my connection inside in the chassis. So yeah, let me get to that real quick. Okay, so for the electrical connector, I went ahead and just ran it through the bottom side of this little plug here, the little seal, and just ran them through. So I still got to take the cover off, like I said, from the inside. I still got to do the stuff. Still have a few stuff I got to do up there because I haven't removed anything at this point. So yeah, so at least now I got my plug kind of in the same length as the original one, and then now I'll just be able to put these up and connect the electrical component. They're now on the instructions that comes with the Bimmer World kit. It does tell you exactly which wires to splice into, which I'll leave as that. So I think it'll be very simple and easy. I will touch base on those wires here shortly.